105 teams to go in my road to predict all 131 teams this college football offseason. Now we're recapping our third playoff team from a season ago. That's the Michigan Wolverines. This is a Michigan team that is coming off a college football playoff berth, their first Big Ten title in the Big Ten championship game era since the game between the two divisions would be played. And it was a Michigan team last year that was very, very good. Offensively, defensively, this team was the team to beat in the Big Ten last year. If you don't consider Ohio State the team to beat in the Big Ten last year, it was Michigan. But this is the team that is losing quite a bit of talent. And now, of course, they have to compete with Ohio State yet again in the Big Ten. So could Michigan win their second straight Big Ten title? Or is this going to be a Michigan team that misses out on the Big Ten championship in 2022? What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate. Welcome to my channel, and I'm predicting all 131 teams this college football offseason. Guys, that means I'm doing your favorite team, so subscribe and ring the bell so you know when that video gets uploaded. Michigan fans, this one goes out to you, but to anyone out there that watches any of my videos, you guys are going to know a lot more about your favorite team than me. So if you feel like I missed something, you want to add something on, leave it in the comment section down there, and I'd be happy to read through them. Michigan in 2022, they are my second-ranked team in the Big Ten coming in to this season. And again, what didn't they do last year besides win a national title? 12-2 overall, 9-1 in conference. That does include the game against Iowa in the Big Ten championship game where they slaughtered the Hawkeyes, went into the playoff semifinal, and unfortunately lost to the eventual national champions, the Georgia Bulldogs, in that 2 versus 3 game. But this is the Michigan team, guys, that was phenomenal on both sides of the football last year. Offensively, 443 yards per game with around 36 points per game. And on the defensive side, only allowed 316 yards per game with 16.1 points per game allowed. And that points per game mark was the best mark in the Big Ten last year. However, there are quite a bit of things leaving this Michigan program, including a lot of coordinators. I believe both their offensive and defensive coordinators will be new this season. But Jim Harbaugh's still there, and they're also losing a lot of talent that we're going to look at now. So running back Hassan Haskins is gone off this team. He had 1,327 yards and 20 touchdowns last year for Hassan Haskins in a Michigan rush game that was probably the best in the Big Ten. So Hassan Haskins there, gone off the team. You lose that production, and that hurts. Otherwise, you lose just kind of a role player, wide receiver, and Dalen Baldwin. Had 256 yards and 2 touchdowns last year. Okay numbers for him there. You do lose an offensive lineman, but your biggest losses by far come on the defensive end. Aiden Hutchinson and David Ojabo, 2 guys that were in the NFL draft, were gone, and they were fantastic last year. Hutchinson had 14 sacks. Ojabo had 11. Hutchinson, the third leading tackler on this team. Massive, massive losses for this Michigan defense, and it doesn't stop there. Josh Ross, Chris Hinton are a couple guys. Josh Ross was their leading tackler. Daxton Hill, 8 passes defended. That led the team. 2 interceptions. I believe that was tied for the team high with DJ Turner, who is coming back, but more on him later. But Daxton Hill, Donovan Jeter, Brad Hawkins, Vincent Gray, all of them gone as well. There is so much talent leaving this Michigan defense, but none greater than Hutchinson and Ojabo. Of course, the 2 guys that storylined this Michigan team all season long. Now, looking at some players that are coming, and of course, losing a lot in the secondary as well. Daxton Hill, Brad Hawkins, 2 top 5 tacklers. Vincent Gray, a really good corner. They're losing a lot of talent on the defensive side of the ball, that is for sure. But looking at the offensive side of the ball, for what they have coming back, Cade McNamara is coming back. They also have J.J. McCarthy back as well. So run through those stats real fast. McNamara had 2,576 yards, 15 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. You would like to see that production increase, but for how much went through that run game last year and through their defense last year for Michigan, Cade McNamara did what he had to do. And for J.J. McCarthy, could also end up being that starter this year. I'm going to lean towards McNamara, but it's not going to surprise me if McCarthy ends up getting that start. He had 516 yards, 5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions last year. Was still a pretty solid option. So really either one of them would be solid options here at the quarterback position. I'm going to think that McNamara gets that starting role. He definitely has more experience under his belt, while McCarthy's upside may be higher. I'd look for McNamara to maybe start out the season. They do still have a fantastic running back room with Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards. Corum was near a 1,000-yard rusher last year at 952 yards and 11 touchdowns. Again, a lot of production through this running game last year for the Wolverines. And Donovan Edwards figures to be that backup. So still some solid options, even though your lead guy, Hassan Haskins, is gone. In the wide receiver room, you return Cornelius Johnson, Roman Wilson, Eric All, your three leading receivers from last year. 8 touchdowns between the three of them as well. But also Ronnie Bell comes back. Went down with a season-ending injury in the first game of the year against Western Michigan. Had a 76-yard touchdown catch. That was his only reception of the season. But he's going to be coming back, and he's probably going to end up being that lead receiver for the Michigan Wolverines, I would bet. On the defensive end, though, still a lot of good players. Mike Morris, Taylor Upshaw, Michael Barrett, a really good guy, a really good player, I feel like. Mike Sainristil was actually a wide receiver last year that figures to play defensive back this year. And with the losses of Hill, Gray, Hawkins, could be a good move, we'll see. But also guys like Rod Moore, RJ Morton, DJ Turner, Will Johnson, still a lot of talent in this Michigan secondary, and still a lot of talent all over this Michigan team. This is the Michigan team that can compete for a Big Ten title in 2022. They absolutely can. Taking a look at the schedule here, your non-conference slate, if you're a Michigan Wolverines fan, is just not very interesting. I mean, at home against Colorado, Hawaii, and UConn. Colorado State, not a very good team last year, and they're losing Trey McBride, probably the best tight end in the draft class last year. Not going to be that much of a threat. Hawaii, a team that you can never really sleep on, but for as much talent as on this Michigan team, it shouldn't be a problem. And then, of course, UConn is UConn. In conference slate, you got home games against Maryland, Penn State, Michigan State, Nebraska, and Illinois, and road games against Iowa, Indiana, Rutgers, and your arch rivals in Ohio State. So, taking a look at some of the games here in this schedule. Again, their non-conference doesn't interest me at all, so we're going to go ahead and go straight into the conference play. Maryland, that's a team that you got to watch out for. They got a really good passing attack coming into this year with Tulia at the quarterback position and lots of talent at wide receiver coming back for that Maryland team. That's going to be a dangerous team to watch, but that defense for Maryland has got to get better. And the run game, now that some of their lead rushers are gone, might have to start picking it up a little bit too. You got a couple tricky road games here, on the road at Iowa, on the road at Rutgers. Again, Rutgers, a team that Michigan should be able to beat, but you cannot count Rutgers out. They're going to be a pretty competitive team, I feel, this year. And then Iowa here. On the road, you can never count out Kirk Ferentz and company at Kinnick Stadium. It's an Iowa team that, look, yes, they made the Big Ten championship last year, but they just weren't impressive. They just were not that impressive, in my opinion. Last year on their way to the Big Ten championship, their quarterback play was not very good at times, and their offensive line, pretty lackluster compared to previous years. But, again, it's an Iowa team, but you never know what to expect from at home. Couple interesting home games here. You got Nebraska at home. This figures to be Scott Frost's best team yet. We'll see what he can do. And then home games against Penn State, Michigan State. Two teams that should be pretty solid coming into next year. Both teams look to, again, try to improve on what they did last year. Michigan State had that incredible season. Even beat this Michigan team last year, was their lone regular season loss. And then Penn State trying to look to put themselves back on the map, although luckily Michigan gets both these games at home with a bye week in between the two games there. So how nice is that? But then the one game I haven't talked about is on the road against Ohio State. Michigan beat Ohio State last year for the first time in a very, very long time. Michigan still holds the overall series lead against those Buckeyes. But for Michigan, in order to win that game this year, look, that game probably going to come down to whichever team wins the East in that game yet again. However, this is an Ohio State team that many feel is going to be much improved from last season, including myself. The offense was rolling last year, and the defense, bringing in Jim Knowles, should only get better. I don't do a game-by-game prediction. I do a more percentage-based outlook to help me predict the team's record. Red is you're probably not going to win the game. Orange is you're still probably not going to win, but hey, it's college football and upsets can happen. Yellow are your 50-50 or upset potential games. Yellow-green are games where you should probably win, but watch out for the team on the other side of the ball, and games in green are book it as a win. So 4 games in green, that's your non-conference games, and that's the game, again, against Illinois there as well. Games in yellow-green are games against Indiana, Rutgers, Nebraska, and Maryland. Feel like Michigan should be able to beat all of them, but again, you got to watch out for the team on the other side of the ball. 2 road games that could be interesting tests depending on how both of those teams play this year, and 2 home games against teams that, again, project to be fairly solid this year in Maryland and Nebraska. But all the games in yellow, those are the games that Michigan fans should have circled on the schedule. But Michigan fans, I know the one game you have circled on the schedule, and that's against the Ohio State Buckeyes. We're going to talk about that one last, but on the road against Iowa, I feel like that's going to be a very tough environment for Michigan this year. I do not feel that defense is going to be as good for Michigan as it was last year. But also when you look, this Iowa defense is losing Tyler Goodson, and they're also losing just a lot of talent on the offensive end, including a couple top receivers there as well. But also for the Iowa Hawkeyes, it's just a team that I don't think is going to be that good. Although you can never count out Kirk Ferentz at Kinnick Stadium. Again, the home games against Penn State and Michigan State. Penn State returns a lot of experience, have a lot of talent on the offensive and defensive sides of the ball. That's a team that was pretty solid on defense as well last year. And then when you look at the Michigan State game, look, that's a game where Michigan State, again, flat out has to improve that pass defense, because this passing attack for Michigan could end up being pretty dangerous in 2022. But then, again, if you are a Michigan fan, right, it doesn't matter. You have to win that game against Ohio State. Doesn't matter what else you do, but you have to beat the Buckeyes. They were able to do it for the first time last year, but this is an Ohio State team, guys, that a lot of people are very, very high on, including myself. Now, I know I am an Ohio State fan, and I try to stay unbiased on this channel. This is an Ohio State team that I feel like is going to be very, very good. And you probably know by now who my number 1 team in the Big Ten is. Michigan is going to have their hands full versus that Ohio State team. Ohio State has not lost to Michigan in forever. They're going to have a chip on their shoulder there. But Michigan's going to prove that last season was not a fluke and that they can beat Ohio State 2 years in a row. That's what Michigan's out to prove this year. All in all, guys, I do not feel like Michigan is going to be back towards a playoff team. Just too many losses on the defensive end. While I still feel like this defense will be pretty good, I don't think it's going to be as good as last year, and I do see Michigan slipping up twice in the regular season this year. That low being 8-4, that high being 11-1. I do feel like the 2 probably most likely losses here for Michigan are, of course, on the road against Ohio State, which I know is not what Michigan fans want to hear, but Ohio State going to be really good this year. And also, you could look to any one of those 3 games in yellow. That's not the Ohio State game at the end of the season. They could lose any one of those 3 right there. But that's going to do it for the Michigan Wolverines, guys. I'm not going to be surprised if this team pushes their way back into a Big Ten championship game. This is still a very, very talented group. But again, that main test is at the end of the season against the Ohio State Buckeyes. Let me know what you guys think about Michigan in 2022. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe, ring the bell, comment, anything you can to help support the channel. And remember to play hard but tailgate hard, or I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.